Hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome to Savvy Central Radio. Each week we host new individuals and business owners to share their expertise, dreams, and lessons learned in their field of business. Our guest today is Lillian Gottlieb of Sassy Zen. Lillian is an artist who for most of her life did not allow herself to fully express her creativity. Though she was very successful in the business world, this lifestyle led to an unhealthy and stressful existence. After her long-term marriage dissolved, Lillian made a decision to pursue her dreams and her own authentic path. This journey brought Lillian to discover her true artistic talents and eventually to her creating the fashionable and wise Annabelle character and Sassy Zen. To find out more about Lillian and Sassy Zen, go to sassyzen.com. That's SASSYZEN.com. Hi Lillian, thanks for coming to Savvy Central Radio today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
You're welcome, Lillian. I'm so excited to have you share your story with us. Tell me, what brought you to the path you're now on and the work you're now doing? I know you started out in a totally different type of work environment, and now you're in health and well-being. Tell me how this all came about for you.
Well, in a very roundabout way, because nothing seems to go in a straight line from here to there. But yes, I was in the mortgage business, counseling people and helping them get financing to buy homes. And one of the questions that everybody asks, when they say, are you on the right path? Are you doing the work that you're supposed to be doing? They say, well, if you know that you're doing something that you would do even if nobody paid you to do, then that's how you know that you're doing your life's work. And I thought, well, I'm there are a lot of aspects of this particular job that I don't love, and the industry changed so much also. And while all this was going on, I was also in a long-term marriage that was about to unravel. So a lot of upheaval and a lot of changes, and I thought, well, if I'm going to have to go look for something new, and if I'm going to be starting over at this point in my life very unexpectedly, then I think I am going to try to answer that question for myself. What is it that I would do and that I would be happy to do if nobody paid me? So one of the things was making art, and the other one was, okay, that's nice, but how does that translate into what I used to do in terms of service and how I was able to help people, and how does that translate into something new? And I thought that the part that I really, really liked and that I really enjoyed and that I was happy to do, even if nobody paid me, because very often I wasn't paid to do it, was to have what I used to call Mortgage 101, which was bring all your questions and we'll get you on the right path. And if, you want to buy a home, this is how you do it. And I thought, okay, so that would be helpful in so many other areas of life. And specifically health, and not just the health of your body, but the health of your mind and the health of your spirit and the health of your emotions. And having gone through so many changes in my own life, having devoted so much time to seeking ways to be more healthy and get through the turmoil and the upheaval and the chaos of, the end of a marriage, the end of a career, the beginning of something else, but a what? And this is the what. Here I am. So long, convoluted answer to a simple, short question. Once I made the break from that particular industry, I felt that what I wanted to do was to share what I had learned about going through unexpected life changes. After spending so much time and energy and even money invested in finding my way through what I was going through in my life, I thought that the way that I was able to put together my art, which I love, my counseling, and cutting to the chase and making things clear for people, I could show somebody how to easily duplicate that in their own life, go through the changes without having to go through years and years of figuring out how to go through the changes.
Without all the initial struggle and making the mistake.
Yeah, and realizing that it just is really true that they say if you do what you love, the money will come. If you do what you love, the success will come and things will fall into place. And, you're always like, yeah, but is just a killer. If I can somehow communicate to someone that it's safe to get past that yeah, but, and really just break through, it's the most wonderful thing that I think that I could share with somebody.
Mm. And we probably yeah, but, and shoulda, coulda, woulda ourselves to death.
Well, that's all covered in the Sassy Zen cards, which is the way that I was able to bring my art into giving advice.
I love that story. Tell us how that all came about. What was the turning point for you, would you say, Lillian, from your old life into this whole new life that you're doing now? And tell us about that journey and the turning point, everything that led up to where you are now.
It was partially that I had gotten my first computer. Somebody had told me how to find Microsoft Paint, and here was this amazing new toy for me to play with. And I had no idea while I was playing with all the shapes and the colors and like really enjoying making art with no rules, It wasn't like, oh, this is the way you're supposed to do this, because there was no supposed to do this. This was like a brand new thing. And I was able to, I guess, approach making art in a very childlike way, without all the judgments. And I think that looking back on it, and this is definitely with 20/20 hindsight, because when I was going through it, there's no way I would have made that connection, was that I had actually plugged into Source without realizing it, by playing with this, and it gave me so much pleasure. And then this character, because there were ovals and shapes, and I ended up with faces and lips and noses and faces, and suddenly there was this character called Annabelle. Who knows where the name came from? I can't explain it, but it was just something that I played with. That at one point I had these grandiose ideas. Oh, look at this fabulous design as it evolved. This is going to go on T-shirts. This is going to be this line of accessories and tote bags and greeting cards. Well, it didn't exactly happen that way. But what happened was that the characters still kept evolving and finding this voice, which we ended up calling Sassy Zen. It's just this idea that we don't really want to butt heads, and especially not with ourselves. We don't want to make things more difficult than they need to be. And we do that by being overly critical of ourselves. So by me doing this art with no critic, no censor, because there weren't any rules, I was doing something that was like really fun, and that was ultimately going to connect me to all these other changes that I had gone through. And once I decided, okay, I'm going to actually go out there as an advisor, a coach, a mentor, whatever you, teacher, whatever you want to call it, for people to connect with their own inner wisdom, that I needed to bring this design, this character with me, because she was my connection to Source. It's a way for me to invite other people to play with her and be childlike and believe in the possibilities that we believed in before they were all dumbed out of us, right? Like, get real, and who do you think you are? And that's kind of how it all came about, by deciding that here were all the pieces of things that I loved and that were good and positive energies for me in my life. How can I put them together, share them, and explain this process of, if we stop criticizing ourselves and shoulding ourselves and butting ourselves,
exactly,
that the way to I don't know, success is such an overused word. What do we mean by that?
To our greatest self, to become and be our greatest self.
To be happy, you know? So that was kind of my journey, that I did appreciate when I was in the mortgage business, that I was doing something that was useful to people. And now I'm able to do it from a place that's much bigger and much more organic and more useful, I think, in the scheme of things.
And probably a lot more authentic to your true self.
Oh, yeah, because now I can absolutely answer the question, would I make new outfits for Annabelle and come up with cool stuff for her for the Design Your Day cards? You bet. You know? In fact, those are free, so I definitely do that for nothing.
That's so awesome. And I love the character of Annabelle. She's so positive. I love the positive message you have with all of your cards and with the message you put out with Annabelle.
You.
For one, I'm a big fashion buff. I love clothes, and she just looks so adorable in all her outfits. I want to steal them. If she were my roommate, I'd be raiding her closet.
I always say, wouldn't it be nice if we could just draw on our wardrobe every morning?
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I would love that.
I know, and yes. I think that road from being in a place that we never anticipated and we never looked forward to and don't even know how to deal with, and then getting to, oh, wait a minute, things could be totally different than I planned them, but so much cooler, right?
Yes.
That's kind of like the message, to just know that if we're doing that thing, whatever it is, that really we would do if nobody paid us. And we can somehow connect that to, if it's really something that, that we're doing for the joy of it, I think the sharing of it can't help but be of service to the world.
I completely agree. So you know what I'm thinking, Lillian, is that what you mentioned prior about being playful with your character, Annabelle, that's become lost in our society. Being creative and getting to express ourselves, our true authentic self, is kind of pushed down and kind of discouraged in our society, which is kind of sad. As a child, you're taught to get out there and play and pretend and imagine, and then when you become adult, you're told, well, no, put that aside. That's for children. And I think we can, as a people and as a human race, can grow so much further and evolve so much farther by allowing ourselves to be creative and imagine and play with each other and add that to our everyday life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the possibilities that open up when we give ourselves permission to do that are unimaginable. You can't even, from that place of judgment and grow up and get real, it's impossible to imagine how everything expands and possibilities that weren't even possibilities just show up because you're open to it, because we let it in.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had mentioned that, too, that being open to the possibilities can allow you to have things in your life that you couldn't even anticipate or imagine that would be even better than what you could have thought of for yourself. And just allowing yourself to be open to all those possibilities.
And go through whatever we're going through without putting this heavy judgment on this is a really good thing, or this is a really bad thing, or this is a really, how do we know what kind of a thing it is? Just because it looks a certain way in a particular context, it doesn't really mean that when it all plays out, right, when the final curtain comes, whatever that is, right, that you can't point to that moment and you go, oh my God, that was so bad, it felt so bad, and it turned out to be beginning of the best part of my life. I mean, we just don't know. So it's the judgment. And also back to the art thing, that if we let ourselves play with something just because it's fun, just because we like it, right? Without saying, oh, you're wasting time, what good is it? Just think about all the restrictions that we place on ourselves without even realizing it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for me, one of the things I felt was a really awful event in my life a couple of years ago, my company downsized and told me they were going to let me go. And I was absolutely devastated. I mean, I thought it was like the worst thing that could have possibly happened to me. Then my old employer took me back, and not the one that let me go, that had to let me go, but another employer that I'd worked with previously took me back. And I stayed there for a while, but it turned out that during that growth period of that event happening where I was downsized and really going through a lot of inner turmoil, feeling like, well, what was wrong with me? Wasn't I good enough? As you said, being really self-critical of myself. What could I have done to make them want to keep me? I made it very much a self-worth issue.
Yeah.
And going through that whole process, I realized then going back to my other employer and spending a year with them, I came to the decision I wanted to start my own business. And my employer I was working with that took me back was very supportive of that. They actually became my first client when I broke out and started my own business. But now looking back, I can see just what you were talking about, Lillian, that it turned out to be one of the best events of my life, taking me to the next transition, the next best thing for me that for me, looked like a crisis at the time. What appears to be a crisis could actually turn out to be your best opportunity. It's just being open to seeing, okay, how can this serve me? Where do I go from here?
Yeah, I think it's just the not slapping the label on it. This is a good thing. This is a bad thing. It's like observing ourselves in a way that says, wait a minute, do I want to be like reacting to everything? Right? Because I think it's supposed to go down a certain way. So because it didn't, and because it doesn't look like what I thought it should look like, that now I should be unhappy about this.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like that choice that we're making. Am I going to react and be unhappy because I'm calling this a bad thing and I didn't want it to go down this way? Or am I just going to choose to be happy because at the end of the day, that's our choice?
Exactly. So, Lillian, what would you say right now is your greatest passion and why for what you do in your life and in your business right now?
I think my greatest passion is to communicate to as many people as possible how easy it is to live without all that self-judgment and self-blame.
I love that.
It's hard to, get a message out there. At the end of the day, the truth, the bottom line, what's true is being taught by so many people. But it's just that more and more of us, I think, are called to this kind of work because not everybody says it the same way, and not everybody's ready to hear it the same way at the same time. Sometimes you'll listen to a speaker, they really resonate, or you read a book and it's like, oh, wow, and then you go back to it and you're like, oh, not the same, right? So I'm just another one of these messengers to do it in a way with the tools and the toys that I have, which are my Annabelle and her fabulous outfits and her Sassy Zen point of view and and in all the years that I've lived and all the experiences that I've been through and come out the other side, that's my passion, to communicate that in a way that resonates for someone else.
Awesome. Tell the audience a little bit about who Annabelle is and how you use her to inspire people.
Well, Annabelle is, as I said, this character who showed up on the computer and took on a life of her own. I mean, I was not a digital artist, right? I'm doing this on Microsoft Paint. But somehow, here she shows up with a name, and then people are like, well, who is she? Does she have a bio? Where is she from? Yeah, she was born once upon a time, everybody. Right? And then you start thinking, well, wait a minute. There's somebody who was born once upon a time is somebody who's pretty much been there, seen it all, right? I mean, if you were born once upon a time, you've seen the rise and fall of empires. This is something that's connected to a lot of wisdom, a lot of information. For me, what started out as this design ended up, no, wait a minute, this is a conduit. This this is something that has a voice that expresses itself in a way that's sort of breezy and fun and short and concise, right? And very impersonally. And it's being delivered by this very mysterious, right, behind her shades and her hats, right?
Mm-hmm.
Feminine character, clearly, but it's like, who is she? Doesn't look like anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's just a way to deliver the message in a way that's like really fun. I created the Sassy Zen cards with 52 different sayings. I think next time I'm going to actually create them so people can actually play card games with them.
Ooh.
Wouldn't that be fun, actually?
I love what you told me that you do with them. You do have some things that you can do for people to get in touch with them, and there's different sayings, and you were going to work with me to tell me some of the colors and how you can mix them. Tell us a little bit about how that all works.
Oh, well, there aren't really any rules for how to play with the cards, but so many people ask me for, well, are there any patterns? Are there any rules? They have to be rules. So
there has to be.
They have to be rules, right?
People want rules.
Right. You got to have rules. What do you mean you have cards and no rules? They started out with no rules. The idea was, just shuffle the deck, ask a question, pull a card, see what comes up, make whatever connections. But that wasn't good enough. So now we can pull 3 cards. We can pull a past, present, and future card. Or I actually, on the website, created some other patterns. They're like PDF free downloads for pulling 5 cards and getting really ambitious and doing 9 cards and having each position reflect a particular area of life. And I sort of super simplified, reinterpreted like Native American medicine wheel or the Chinese feng shui bagua, but people who are real practitioners of that would be like, oh, no. So I wasn't trying to duplicate that, but I was trying to kind of use that as a template. Past, present, future is obviously just past, present, future. And I've done card readings with the cards. And that could be a conversation, or that could be something that somebody does by themselves. Or I've had people who said, well, I pull a card every day. I sort of focus on that message, which is kind of how the Design Your Day cards evolve. Now they come out by email. But how interesting to have like a particular thought or message that you kind of explore, well, gee, if I insert that into what's going on today, how might that change the picture? And of course, it doesn't matter what new thing we bring in, a new thing is going to create a different mix. So the new thing happens to be a Sassy Zen thought, like could be consider the possibilities of a different point of view. That's one of the cards. So it's interesting because, consider means, well, just look at it. It doesn't tell you, don't judge it, don't evaluate it, don't even adopt it, just look at it. Possibilities, I mean, that's such a great word because, possibilities, what else is possible, right?
Love that word.
Yeah. Different, how different? Better, worse, right? Different doesn't know. And then, point of view, it's like, what is the point and where is the point? Who's the viewer, right? Even from the same position, 2 people again. It's just something to ponder. So the Sassy Zen cards and Annabelle in general are just to play with. They're just to follow a particular path down our own imagination.
Yeah, use your own imagination to be creative and imagine your own possibilities. I love that. And for anyone who wants to check out Annabelle, can they go to sassyzen.com, I believe?
Yes, they can go to sassyzen.com, and they can also go to annabelleny.com. But sassyzen.com will tell them about the cards. It'll tell them about the ebook. It has the patterns for the free downloads, and it's a place where if somebody wants to sign up for the daily email message to design their day, that's the place to do it. So yes, sassyzen.com.
Which I'll spell just so everyone makes sure they have it, which is SASSYZEN.com. Everyone, please check it out. You'll love them. I get a wonderful personal message every day from Annabelle and Lillian and Sassy Zen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and for allowing us to all be creative and imagine our own possibilities. On your way to becoming where you are now in your journey, what were some of your biggest struggles or challenges you've had to face, and how did you overcome them?
What I now call the illusions, but at the time felt like terrible tragedies, really bad things, right? The end of a long-term marriage, the end of a career, trying a new business and not seeing it get off the ground and be successful, and even buying an apartment and having the real estate market crash. Right? I mean, things that could be called not good things, bad things. But I think that I didn't want to be like terribly depressed and unhappy. I didn't want to be dragged down and sucked in by what I now call the illusions of bad things, right? They were just changes. But they weren't necessarily fun to go through. But I also see that's what fueled my wanting to share this with people and communicate this idea of, yeah, it might look really, really bad, but if we just ride it out without getting locked into how bad it is, we come out the other side and we see that was just another bend in the road to where I'm going. So challenges, yeah, it wasn't fun. And the challenge was to not buy into the illusion of how bad all these really bad things were. Because if I did, there were other ways I could have gone with it, right? I was determined to find my way out the other side and win. Even that whole thing about winning. Winning what? And how do we decide when we win? Like, what do we just say, okay, you know what, I won.
Yeah, that's it. We're there. We don't need to get there. We're there.
Right. We're there right now. This is it. I'm alive. I'm breathing. I won.
We're there.
And just not take it all so seriously.
A mentor had told me last year, she said, a lot of people come to her and say, okay, I want to be fixed. And she's like, fixed from what? Well, what's wrong? Your machine broken? She said, we have this concept in our mind, even with a lot of the self-help industry, that there's something to be fixed. You're broken. Let's fix it. And she said, the way I see it, nothing is needing to be fixed. It's just getting back to your full self, getting back in touch with your full self, which is not broken, which you're just getting more back in touch with. Yeah. Yeah, you know what I like, Lillian, is also you mentioned that not looking at what happens is good or bad, that the changes are just that, they're changes. And for me, I know that the changes have resulted in major, major growth. And what looks quote-unquote bad, if you just don't judge it and let it be, you'll see the way it turns about is most cases you become stronger from the worst things, you gain more knowledge, I mean, for me, there was times within the whole year and a half that I've started my business that things have at times looked really not so good on the surface. And I've stepped back and said, okay, I'm not going to judge this. But it's really hard because we're kind of really taught in our society to judge something good and bad or, give it, as you say, a label. And to just step back and say, okay, there is no label. It is what it is, and everything shall pass. Everything is temporary. If you're going through a not fun time, it's temporary.
Yeah. I think everything that we want and everything that anybody wants at any time is that the bottom line is that whatever they want it to be happy. If the ultimate goal is to be happy, then I think we need to focus just on a day-to-day basis on what's going to get us there. And that's not conditional on if blah, 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 then I'll be happy. Because that's like they said there was a sign, right, on a bar, and it said, free beer tomorrow. Well, nobody ever got any free beer because tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow is like one of the Sassy Zen cards says, it's always today. Yesterday was today, and tomorrow will be today.
Exactly.
So if we want what we want because we want to be happy, let's just be happy.
Choose it. Yeah, it's ultimately, a choice. And there's been times where it's very interesting. I'll be in the slumps like you wouldn't believe it, and I'll be so depressed and, thinking all these not good thoughts. And then I'll become aware of what I'm doing, and I'll just shift it and think something positive and think, wow, I already instantly feel better just by changing my perspective. And that's how easy it is, no matter where you are, is just shifting your perspective, paying attention. Where am I right now? Do I want to stay here, or am I going to make a choice to be happy? You know what one of my guests said prior? She said, what I do to do that is if I start to get in a slump, I just turn it around and say, what am I grateful for? And the minute I go there, bam, instant shift.
Yeah.
So Lillian, tell us, who have been some of your greatest role models that have inspired you on your journey?
Oh, wow. Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way. It's probably one of the earliest books that really, really resonated with me and started a shift for me. Way before all the outward manifestations. We're in there like the pot's getting stirred, right?
Yeah.
And below the surface, things are heating up before we see the bubbles up on the top. And, oh, turmoil, chaos, right? So, let's see, who else? Mike Dooley.
Who's he?
Everybody needs to check this out. You get notes from the universe every day. Just like Design Your Day cards, that was an inspiration for me. You go just Google notes from the universe and sign up, and you'll get a note from the universe every day. But he's written some books, and he's just another one of these, what do we call ourselves in this feel-good industry, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just such a follower of so many people, the whole Abraham Hicks thing with Esther Hicks, and Carolyn Meese is somebody else who I really admire. This could go on forever, so let's not even do that.
No, I've had a slew of role models myself, and it's great to remember that, because each of these people, and you had mentioned feel-good industry, I've heard some of my friends that aren't really into the self-help, or as you call it, maybe feel-good industry, they kind of see it as, people just say, or these people in that industry just tell people what they want to hear, make them feel good, but they don't really do anything for society. And I said, that's not what it's all about. I kind of see it all as these people help us remember who we really are, get in touch with our authentic self. And they're, as you said, Lillian, quite literally, the messengers in the world to help us remember who we really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all a good teacher does, is help us to remember. And that's why there's so many messengers, because so many different people need to hear the message in different ways.
Exactly.
And I could see that on the one hand, for me, the idea that really that I was creating my reality by my thoughts, by my attitude, by my emotions. That was very empowering, even when I was looking at something going, excuse me, you mean I created this? Like, why?
Right, why would I do this?
What do you mean? No, it's somebody else's fault. But then I thought, oh no, but wait a minute, if it's somebody else's fault, then I'm going to have to rely on somebody else to fix this. It's kind of like this double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, it's like, oh, this stuff I presumably created doesn't look so cool. And on the other hand, it's like, but is there somebody going to show up, a genie in a bottle, right? And fix it all? Well, that's not going to happen either. So I think that when we get really committed to the idea, yes, we do create our world by our thoughts, and by our emotions, and by our attitude, and consequently by our actions, that can be a really empowering thing. It can also be very frustrating. But once we get that, then we realize that there's so much that is in our hands. And again, remembering that the reason that we want anything is because we'll feel better, we'll be happier. And if that's in keeping our eye on the ultimate goal and going, oh, okay, so I can create my reality, and the reality that I want is to be happy, and now how do I do that? One way is to not think unhappy thoughts. Another way is to not criticize and insult ourselves. That's just not very conducive to happiness. And we begin to see that, wait a minute, it's just a matter of being aware, pretty consistent basis. Oh, I'm feeling bad. Gee, why am I feeling bad, right? What is it that what story am I telling myself that's causing these really bad feelings? Sometimes we can't shift the story around, oh, not enough money or not enough love or the one that got away or, there's just no way to shift that story. Maybe we can just not even tell ourselves anything about that story and just change the subject.
So empowering what you're talking about. There's a great misconception about, what was that movie that came out that was The Secret? And at first, I didn't really like the way the book portrayed it. I liked the way a lot of the same core messages that were in The Secret were in Conversations with God. And for me, as you said, different teachers say it in a different way that you can handle it and that fit and kind of jive with you better. And Conversation with God really did connect with me more, but it was still the same core message. And a lot of people have problems with both The Secret and Conversation with God because they feel like you're kind of making yourself a god of sorts, and that, how could you? You're just a little person. Everything comes from outside of you. You're not the source.
Yeah.
And how dare
Who do you think you are?
Yeah, how dare you think you're? And what it is, if you go deeper into the message, it isn't just sitting here meditating and things just popping in your lap, and you're just so amazing, and you just made everything happen out of nowhere. It's really about taking personal responsibility and becoming one with the source, and how I see the source is God. Not everyone has a connection with God, but for me it's God. And I build that connection now with God and realize that when things don't show up the way I wanted in my life, how have my thoughts, words, and actions brought me to that point? Because it's essentially first your thought, which will then end up creating the words that you say, and then hence the actions that you take. It all starts, as you said, Lillian, with those initial thoughts, and you do have power over deciding what you're going to think and what you're going to say, and then in essence what you're going to act on. It does give you a great sense of power to orchestrate your life and bring happiness about, but by first taking responsibility. And that's something I think a lot of people in our society are uncomfortable with, taking that responsibility for themselves.
Nobody's going to hear a message until they're ready to hear it. So all that we can do is just make it available. Just know that the vibration of the whole planet is raised when anybody's consciousness is raised. I just spoke with someone last week, and we were talking about the whole nutrition piece of what I do. I had offered her a consultation a year ago, and she didn't take it. We were having this conversation just last week, and she said, you know what? She said, a year ago, I was not ready to hear this. She wasn't ready to hear that what she was putting in her mouth was making her sick. It's that same level of responsibility. You want to be a victim of circumstance, or, do you want to empower yourself as much as possible? It's not that walking around with a magic wand, but though I very much believe in magic wands, you never know. But if somebody's not ready to hear a message, then not ready is just not ready. I don't think we can, Yeah,
and I agree. A year and a half ago, before I started my business, before I started it, there was just not a possibility prior to starting my business that I was ready to go that path. And essentially that crisis a little bit before with getting downsized and losing, or about to lose that job, really is what started to propel me towards being ready to take that step. But as you said, no one can be ready until they're ready. It's good to remember that we do have options to make our lives better, and little by little, as long as we keep looking to be open to growing and learning and be involving.
To just give up, as you said, the idea that we need to be fixed. That there's anything wrong. If we start out from the premise of, well, there's something wrong, and we're not quite good enough, and this needs to be tweaked, and this needs to be upgraded, and too many pounds here, and too few dollars there, and, it's just, I think that's kind of what we got to let go of. Constant measuring, evaluating, labeling, criticizing, judging. These things are not happiness conducive.
Yeah, and to remember it's a process. I still get on myself. I'm very hard on myself. My friends tell me that I really beat myself up way too much. If things don't appear perfect or the way I'd like them to be or think is the best way, I really beat myself up, and it's not helpful to my growth and to me being my best self.
No.
Yeah. What would you say, Lillian, would be some of the biggest mistakes that some new business owners make once they get up and going in their business, and how can they avoid these pitfalls?
When I look back at my biggest mistakes, it was that I should, oh yeah. Uh-oh. It would have been a better idea if I had had advice from sources other than from where I got the advice. So I think that if somebody is going to go for advice, it's important to know who's doing the advising. Is this person really in a position to advise me in my own best interest to grow the business? Because what happened for me was that I paid for a great deal of money, actually, for advice and mentoring in business from someone who didn't really have a long enough track record to be able to show me the pitfalls. Because while they looked really good and very successful, and short-term they didn't really have the track record. So I would say the best advice that I would give to somebody is check out who you're taking advice from.
That's very good advice. No.
Yeah.
That's very true. That's very true. I took a lot of advice from family members and such, and it's true. Guard where your advice is coming from, because the people who are giving you advice, whether you pay for it or take it from family members or friends, might not be the best or most eligible to give you the best information that you need.
And very often, the people that are closest to you are the worst people to get advice from. If the relationship with you is so subjective, how can they give you objective advice?
They're too emotionally connected, too close.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to know, what do you have on the horizon for Annabelle and for your company going forward?
Oh, wow. Well, the most exciting project, I don't know if it's the most, but it's the one that I've been thinking about the most, is I'm in the process of co-authoring a cookbook with the working title of The Colorful Chef. Annabelle tried on a chef's hat, and that was it. She was going to be in this book.
She's like, I'm so in.
Yes, this is so me. So Alita Morrill in Texas and I are co-authoring this book with Annabelle.
Awesome.
And yes, and it's very exciting because it's all about bringing families back to the table and eating organic and eating locally and eating sustainably, and how to do it on a budget. You know how a lot of people don't like to cook or they eat a lot of processed food because they think that it's easier and faster. So the book, a way to show how you can eat fresh foods, and it'll be just as easy and just as fast and 1,000 times more healthful.
I love that. And what you mentioned that is so missing from a good portion of our society is the connection and the communion between coming together with a family meal and sharing in that meal together. It's just, I love that growing up. Those couple of times where my family would really get together for a Sunday meal, it's just...
Yeah.
And now we do it once a year for Thanksgiving, and we all gripe about it.
So this is one project, and then another one is, just getting ready to do some talks and some workshops in the New York area on various topics. March is coming up, so we're going to call that one The Winds of Change.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, because the winds of change are always blowing somewhere. We just want to bring a lot of the fun elements into cooking so that it instead of it being a chore, it's actually a creative endeavor. Have more love and better food.
Could also be yet another way for the family to come together and do something, an activity that is both good for you and something that you can all share in together, and making the meal together as a family unit. Yeah.
Yes. Alita's grandchildren are getting their hands in there. We're trying to see what age-appropriate menus there are. I remember cooking my first meatloaf when I was 12.
Uh-huh.
That was exciting.
Wow. Well, I remember my mom was really big into making pot roast, lasagna, and one of my all-time German favorite dishes was Rouladen, which is like this beef that you kind of tenderize. You beat it down, and you make it into long rolls or a long strip, and then you put bacon, mustard, and pickle in it, and you roll it up and put a toothpick in it. Then you let it saute in this sauce, this gravy-like sauce with, you know, she used to put wine and beer in it, and let it sit there for like 12 hours. And it's phenomenal. Yeah. Makes me want to have some right now. No.
Oh, well.
Lillian, so tell me, what would you say, since you've been in business and opened your doors, what has been your greatest success story or accomplishment that you've created so far?
I think the evolution of Annabelle into that voice, that Sassy Zen, how it sort of allowed my voice to become a part, to be a part of that. The course to become certified as a health coach, and, you know, integrative nutrition. I mean, that was like totally unexpected when I set out to go out into business for myself. The first business model that I envisioned completely didn't work. I think that just hanging in there, knowing that it was a work in progress, it was something that was evolving, it was something that needed to be allowed to evolve rather than to say, oh, well, that didn't work, forget it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, keeping in there and not having this fixed idea that if it didn't happen in this particular way, well, then it just wasn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing it to evolve into the form that it has now, that was completely unanticipated, is the most astonishing experience of my life.
Mm.
I mean, who knew?
Yeah. And I love what you're saying there, Lillian, because I know for myself, when I opened the doors, I expected, well, bam, this is supposed to be successful in a month, and if I don't see results, then it was never meant to be, and I totally messed up. I stuck with it. Thank God my mentor kept me on the road, and now it's evolved into something totally that I would have never expected, but it is now my absolute greatest passion and joy. But I would have never gotten there had I just not let go of, as you said earlier, the critical mind, my critical bashing myself and saying this isn't turning out the way I want it to, the letting go of the particular results having to show up, and just letting things be and evolve as they should.
As they will, because everything will evolve. Well, if I ever told you the story that I had somebody giving advice, you know, the well-meaning advice, let's put it under, you know, quotes around that, forget about Annabelle. Forget about it, you know, at some point when things were really not going well and the first business model was coming apart. Forget about it. It's a failure. Forget it. And I was like, well, no. You know, I don't want to forget it. And what do you mean it's a failure? It's not over till it's over. So it wasn't a nice thing to hear, but in a way, really thinking about this person's calling it a failure. Does that mean I have to call it a failure? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. And just to say, just because it's not working right now, it hasn't evolved yet to its fullest potential.
It hadn't. It wasn't even on the planet of what it was going to be. And it was just, and yeah, I guess we could always say, oh, that's it, failure, didn't work.
Mm-hmm. Here's something I remembered. I think they had asked Thomas Jefferson, I think he had, the light bulb, I think he'd had like one
Thomas
stuff.
Edison.
Edison, I'm sorry. Thomas Jefferson. Oh my God. Sorry, people. Wrong person.
Just for the record.
Big boo-boo. Thomas Edison. Oh, he had 1,000 mistakes until he accomplished the light bulb. And he said, well, how do you feel about those mistakes or whatever? I think, if I'm remembering the story correctly. And he said, well, they weren't mistakes. They were just one step closer to success. So it's really how you look at any failure or perceived failure in your life. If things aren't working, it's just one step closer. You can cross that off and try again and try a different way of doing it because you're just one step closer to the goal you're reaching or wanting to reach.
Or maybe the goal completely changes and morphs into something else. Or it was just, it's, you know, and again, the bottom line is We want to be happy. We want to feel good.
Yes.
So if that's our true north,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, I think that, we're pointed in the right direction.
I agree. Where I've ended up with my business was nowhere where I started, and it's perfect. And who knows where I'll be tomorrow, and it's all perfect.
Yeah, but I can see you're having a good time with your...
You betcha.
Yeah.
It's been a blast, and I'm completely and absolutely grateful that it has come about. And I'm so grateful as well that you came on Savvy Central Radio to share your story, Lillian. Do you have any last words of advice you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yes. Remember that we want to be happy, so be happy.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome advice. And thank you so much, Lillian, for coming on Savvy Central Radio. It was awesome having you on.
Oh, thanks for having me. I super enjoyed it.
Lillian Gottlieb, certified health coach, creator of Annabelle and Sassy Zen. To find out more, go to Lillian's website at sassyzen.com, or you can contact Lillian at 917-572-6702, or her email address at lillian@sassyzen.com. Join us this Monday for Shal Habib Simha Cohen, Miss Fitness Israel.